Hi, I'm Leon Lovelace, and this is Unstoppable Force. Now, it's been a while, but I need to make a news story about Julian Assange. I haven't made one yet, but even though most of the independent news show hosts have done a video about Julian Assange, I still need to do one too because it's just really critical to freedom of the press and just journalistic freedom and just quality journalism in general. And of course, a lot of you know that um, Ecuador, the Ecuadorian government, especially the Ecuadorian president, he's talking to the UK government officials right now, and a lot of it's looking like he's gonna release Julian Assange to the UK officials, and this isn't really good because I have this on the intercept right here, and it's because the only criminal proceeding Assange currently faces is a pending 2012 arrest warrant for failure to surrender, which is basically a minor bail violation that arose when he obtained asylum from Ecuador rather than complying with bail conditions by returning to a court for a hearing on his attempt to resist extradition to Sweden. The article continues, says that offense carries a prison term of 3 months and a fine. Though it is possible that the time Assange has already spent in prison in the UK could be counted against that sentence. Then it goes on about how he was already in prison for 10 days and he was under house arrest for 550 days. But I think a lot of you have already heard or already thinking that the UK might want to charge him and convict him for failure to surrender. But the more important aspect of his proceedings is that the United States government might come in and try to arrest him and try to convict him for publishing a whole bunch of classified documents. And since he exposed a lot of different governments for their criminal activity, including the United States, U.S. government officials are really pissed off that he's exposed them for being the criminals that they are. So they're trying to really crack down on him, just like they cracked down on Chelsea Manning. So even though Chelsea Manning did finally get released from prison, just the fact that even though the United States does have whistleblower protections, they still put Chelsea Manning in prison for around 7 years, and I want to say that was one of the longest prison sentences that a whistleblower had ever been convicted of. And then the article continues and talks about that technically it is a crime for people under U.S. law to publish classified information, but it does say later on that even though it is, media companies and journalists do have the First Amendment right to publish information that is critical to public scrutiny and public information, because the government cannot just do whatever the hell they want willy nilly, whether it's torturing random men um, and then just saying that they're terrorists, or whether it's starting wars or continuing wars to make sure that we steal other nations' natural resources, or whether we're just trying to overthrow a government official or a president we don't like so we could put our own president of our own choosing, so we could have a puppet president in there, so we could really just control what's going on in that region, especially with putting in our own private corporations to get especially oil money from those nations, or it's to cover up any other crimes that has been committed. Yeah, it's just going to be really critical that if these things come to pass. But I do want to mention that the Ecuadorian government actually failed Julian Assange and really the people, the whole world, the working class, just the whole world, because instead of just saying, okay, we're going to give you political asylum and let you stay in our embassy so you can't get wrongly or unjustly um, arrested and unjustly just convicted of frivolous crimes because these governments want to crack down on you for exposing them. They should have said, well, you know what, Mr. Julian Assange, we're going to give you political asylum and let you live in Ecuador until all these governments back off and actually don't come after you for exposing them. Because that's what Russia did with Edward Snowden is they said we're going to give you political asylum so you could come live here. So Ecuadorian government, even though back then they were favorable to Julian Assange, they should have been a little more, used a little more of their political power and said, you know what, we're going to let you live here. Because even though he hasn't been under arrest, he's practically been in prison for 7 years. He's been trapped in the Ecuadorian embassy. So him leaving on those terms is pretty poor right now, and if we're lucky, we the people can actually fight to make sure that the U.S. government doesn't try to arrest them for these bullshit reasons of him exposing them. Because we the people do need to know what our government's doing, and I think in a way it's an unlawful it'd be unlawful imprisonment for the U.S. government to try to lock them up for that.